Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
That you say?
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today is a special day at Ron's Amazing Stories. I've been telling you that we're going to tell the story of my mother's haunted doll for a while now. Today, we're going to do just that. With us are our two very good friends, Sylvia Shults and Lynn Dowd. Both of these wonderful people have been part of the show since nearly the very beginnings. You may not believe what you're about to hear, but it is all true, and it's amazing. Before we get to the story, though, here is a brief message from our sponsor. Did you know that Ron's Amazing Stories is sponsored by Audible? Audible is home to over 180,000 audiobooks, any of which can be yours. All you have to do is sign up for a 30-day free trial, and Audible will give you a free book and access to their original content. To download your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. The year is 2005, and a porcelain doll sits on the shelf of a local thrift store in Vancouver, Washington. It has long brown hair and a white face with plump orange lips. Her eyes are black, but have a hint of blue if you were to look closely. She's wearing a tan coat with gold buttons and a dress to match. It's in the style of an equestrian rider from the late 1800s. To my mother, it was the perfect companion doll to others in her collection. She wanted to have it. She walks up to the doll and picks it up. It has a blue tag. That means she can have it at 75% off today. She carefully places the doll in the shopping cart and heads to the checkout counter. Now, that is how our story begins. There are many twists and turns to be had: bad dreams, woeful luck, broken bones, and disembodied voices. What started as a new doll for a collection has ended up with more questions than answers. But how did we get here? What we're going to do today is tell that story. To do that, we have recordings, crazy tales, and two experienced ghost hunters, one of which is Lynn Dowd. Emma is a longtime friend to the podcast and is the radio producer of Ron's Amazing Stories. She makes sure that the show goes out on AMFM247 twice a week. She wears many hats, and we'll hear about some of them. As a ghost hunter, she's been all over the country for over 15 years and has had many documented experiences. Emma, let's start with this question. Where is the doll now, and how is she doing?
The doll is in the care of a professional paranormal investigating team that specializes in haunted dolls, and she's doing phenomenal.
There's quite a story that goes with that, isn't there?
There is, yes.
Well, before we get to that story, let's introduce our second ghost hunter. You know her from Ghost Stories with Sylvia. her podcast Lights Out, and of course, the books. She's been on the show more than anyone, except maybe me. Sylvia, you just heard that Emma said that the doll is now in the care of a paranormal group. Can dolls truly be haunted, and how does that happen?
They absolutely can be haunted. As far as how it happens, there are several ways that can happen, just as there are several ways a ghost can be made or develop. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about that a lot later in the show.
I'm sure we will. All right, well, let's get this started with really how I found out that the doll was haunted in the first place. We did a series of shows on the Horror Express, and I asked Emma to look at photos of my mom's doll collections. 2 dolls stand out to her. Do you remember that, Emma?
I do.
So let's talk about that for a minute. What was it about 2 of the dolls that made you think that there was something strange about them?
I could feel a strange energy coming from them, almost like they were trying to talk to me. And generally that doesn't happen. I work in a haunted house that has a lot of dolls, and I only get that feeling off of a few, which is pretty interesting. And so being able to see this on the photo, I was like, okay, there's got to be something more to this.
So if you're interested in hearing those particular shows, they're no longer on the podcast website, but I will have links to them in the show notes so that you can actually hear how all that happened and why we actually did the show in the first place. That led to another show where we had a gentleman send Emma a marionette. Do you remember that?
I sure do.
Well, what happened there was he was listening to the 2 episodes that we did on dolls, and he told us that he was totally creeped out by this marionette. He wanted to give it to Emma, have her take a look at it. And Emma, tell us just a little bit about what happened with that.
Yeah, I did a bunch of investigation to it. And as I started to progress, we had some things, a couple of EVPs, but that honestly could have been from anywhere. I mean, this is a house. There's a lot of things going on. I have neighbors that are loud. It could have been from anywhere. It didn't really pertain to the doll itself, what was said. So I don't know if it was trying to communicate with us. I don't know if it's something from outside. But I can tell you this. That doll, I did an investigation with it for almost a year straight, constantly coming out, looking at it, doing different things. It eventually found out that I came out one day. I'm like, something's missing out here. And as I looked around, I was like, oh, my God, it's a doll. And so I was like, okay, the doll is gone. And I found it after we had remodeled the kitchen, reorganized the garage a little bit more, and we found him. I have never really seen anything super aggressive towards it, like this guy was saying. I never got nightmares out of it. I never got any energy off of it. But I understand where they're coming from, especially with these types of dolls, because, this is one of the things I took into consideration. When you are with a doll, you are literally embracing that doll. And this is something I talk about at the May Stringer too with our dolls, is that, you got to understand that these dolls are something special. And to a child, these dolls are like the Calvin and Hobbes. Hobbes came alive to Calvin. Mm-hmm. And the little girls believe this kind of stuff too. That's why they talk about it. They give it all their secrets. If they're scared, they hold on to it. And they, if they're not feeling good, they hold on to them and cuddle them. And if they're happy and having a good time, they're running around, throwing things, throwing it in the air, having tea parties with it, playing with it. So that energy can be transferred from the person to the doll. That doesn't necessarily mean it's haunted, but it just to me means that you are more sensitive to feeling some of that energy as it replays itself when you come across it or touch it. So that was one of the things I try to come up with. And you got to understand, with a marionette doll, you literally make it move, talk, walk, or whatever else you're doing. So whoever had that doll, they were literally bringing that doll to life. Mm-hmm. That's why I think a lot of people that see these types of dolls get a little bit more intimidated by them. But I don't truly believe that just about every doll is haunted. I truly believe that what we're feeling is the energy behind it. And I think that is what happened with this particular doll.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, David he wanted it out of his house. He wanted it out of his life. Yeah. And after it left, he felt better.
Yeah, sure.
But in your professional opinion, that was a marionette.
It is a marionette, yes. I mean, it had the strings. It had it looked like Pinocchio, basically. It acted like Pinocchio. Pinocchio would have had all these strings attached to it to make it come alive and perform. Now, I know he didn't technically play with it, but other people before that may have used it in shows or learned how to do this. And so, therefore, it's a lot more real. And I can maybe see where he's coming from with that.
All right, well, let's get back to the doll in question. I'm going to tell a few of the highlights that happened while we had the doll here at the house. The first thing that started happening to my mom was she was having terrible nightmares. Her health declined because she wasn't sleeping at night, and we started to look for a cause. The doctor, he prescribed different medicine that helped somewhat, but the dreams continued. And not only did the dreams continue, but they were so horrific and so nightmarish that she started having some mental issues and was not living in this world. And by that I mean she was hearing and seeing things that just weren't there. Then some really bad luck began to happen with the doll. She was walking just out to the kitchen, and somehow she fell forward. Her hand went in between the rungs of a rocking chair. The chair rocked and broke her arm. It was just not a good time, and I knew that we had to do something, but I didn't know what to do. Later on, my niece had an encounter with the doll. While here for a visit, she got a bad headache and asked if she could go lay down in my mom's room. She went to lay down, and she swears that doll started talking to her, and it was using an evil voice. It freaked her out so bad that she didn't want to come to this house for a while. Well, after the broken arm occurred, my mom had to have physical therapy to get her strength back in her arm. Well, the physical therapist came here to the house, and he tells my mom, "Can we do something with that doll? Because it's really bothering me." And he asks her about it, and my mom says, "Well, it's just a doll. I picked it up here, and I've been told it has some kind of life, but I don't know." And he says, "Well, there's something wrong. Can we do something about it?" There's some more confirmation that there's something odd about this doll. Later on, my mom spills a cup of coffee on the doll. She takes the dress off and washes it. She washed it in the sink, by the way. She said that she felt jittery and off the whole time that the dress was off, so much so that she couldn't wait to get that dress back on that little doll. My first encounter was that one day I was looking at the doll. We're trying to figure this out. We know pretty much that there's something with it. And I noticed that the eyes had changed color. They had gone from a really dark black to a light blue, and I had no explanation for this. I could have said, well, it was just the light, but it wasn't, because I can show you pictures of the doll with dark eyes and then another set of pictures with blue, and I certainly have no explanation for that. Other family members said that they weren't comfortable in the room and asked me to move the doll out of my mom's room. I did so. In fact, I brought it into my part of the house, and I never had any problem. The doll didn't bother me. It didn't cause me any troubles. I didn't have any nightmares, but bad luck and the nightmares still continued for my mom. Fed up, I asked Emma if she would take the doll and investigate. I packed it up in a box and sent it to Florida. Not too much later, the nightmares stop and my mom starts to feel better. So you can take what you want from that, but that is pretty much what happened with our connection with this doll. So Emma, then you got the doll.
Yes, I did.
And to say your experience with the doll wasn't any better, let's hear what happened.
Well, when I got the doll, I actually didn't feel anything major off of it. In fact, I thought it was quite pretty, kind of like your mom did. And so what I decided to do was introduce it to my two dolls that I had here. And I said, look, we are all friends. I'm here to help you. I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to give you what you need. And if there's something that you can tell me that you need, I'll do it for you. And so that's how we left it at first. And then I started realizing pretty quickly that I started having some bad nightmares. And some of them were so realistic that I didn't quite know what was going on. So I brought my other friends over that do a ghost investigation, and we had put up a bunch of things around it, from like a ghost box to a EVP. We also did K2 meters and everything. And we got a lot of interesting content, and it kept saying my name on the ghost box over and over and over again. So then I realized, you know something, I think that there's something to this doll. So what I decided to do was I put it on the table with the other two dolls and put a whole bunch of salt around it. And I continued to come through there and check it out on a pretty much a weekly basis for a while. It was about a month after I got the doll, things started going really, really bad. I remember trying to tap into my computer from the museum that I work at, only to find out I couldn't get in. And so I had Fran come over here and look into it. And when she got home, the entire system, everything that I had, electronic, was blown up. It came down to a little bit of lightning that happened a little bit down the street, and it fried only my house. It didn't fry anybody else's house. When I was said and done, it was about $8,000 to $9,000 worth of damage that I had to replace. Of course, it's homeowner's insurance, and they wouldn't cover it at all because it wasn't part of the house. So I had to recover that. Shortly after that, my car blew up. The entire engine was destroyed. I had to get this other car, and it ended up blowing up too. I also had to do a surgery because of some hormonal in fluctuations in my body made my stomach bloat out, and they could not seem to take care of it. I was working on it for about a year. Having MS, I couldn't breathe. So what we decided to do was do surgery to fix that. My mom was supposed to come over here to help me with that. And as soon as she did, the week after, she had a heart attack. And so she was unable to do it. And so I kind of went through that. Everything was fine. You know, I came through everything just fine. Shortly after that, in January, my mom started feeling a little sick again. So I started to try to help her out a little bit more, only to find out she had to go to the hospital in February from a different type of illness. And then she came back out of that. And a week later, she went back to the hospital, had a second heart attack. We almost lost her. And she was suffering for a long time. And she couldn't walk. She couldn't move. And so I'm like, okay, well then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take care of her. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a vacation. I needed it. So I went up to Ohio to visit my cousin. And when I got up there, somebody got a hold of my debit card for my business and completely wiped out every bit of that money, over $4,000. I was stuck up in Ohio with absolutely no money. I had just landed a couple hours earlier, and I had to be there for a week. And I couldn't do anything about it, and it just kept getting worse. And then they started to go to another account that I had. Finally got it stopped, managed to survive as best as I could. Shortly after that, I came back and pressed charges against this woman. And then I find out that the person I decided to work with in order to help me grow the radio station and get it on larger stations like Sirius XM and stuff was sabotaging me. And so he sabotaged the business. We lost thousands of dollars a month, and I'm in the process of rebuilding that. And then so I just said, you know what? I think there's a correlation here because I have those bad dreams almost every night. Nothing good has happened to me ever since I got this doll. It has to be the doll, because it was literally about a month afterwards. So I decided to take the doll to the museum, and I was going to leave it up there just to kind of experiment to see if, okay, things calmed down. I didn't even get it up there the first day, and one of the co-docents up there, who also does paranormal investigating, said she would love to try to debunk some of this stuff. So she took it home, and I said, let me know if you have any headache, if you have any sicknesses, or if you get any types of weird dreams or anything like that. She got weird dreams almost immediately. And then what ended up happening was she started to get some type of EVPs, and it was saying Lizzie. And it was like we said, in a demonic type of voice. And so it really freaked her out. And then she was going to give it back to me, and I was going to figure out what to do with it after that. And then we did a special ghost tour for Halloween. And when we did that, I ran into the paranormal group, and they grabbed it. She took it home. She washed its hair, cleaned it up, and the eyes have been blue ever since. And my nightmares have kind of stopped. I still have a little bit of residual from it, But at the same time, I think for the most part, I think it's over. And things have been a little bit better since then.
So let me ask you, Sylvia, now that you've heard that, a lot of people would say, well, that's all just coincidence. That's just stuff that happens to everybody. Yeah, maybe Emmett had a little harder than most, but it just happens. What are your thoughts?
I don't think all that was a coincidence. I mean, yeah, people have runs of bad luck, but this was an awful lot. And it coincided with the doll being brought into Emma's vicinity. Yeah, I really think that the doll was the catalyst for all of this bad luck, and certainly for the nightmares. It seems to me, in all the accounts that I've read and heard about, that dreams and nightmares are one of the easiest ways for spirits to communicate with us. And if you bring a doll into the house that has a spirit attachment to it, then yeah, you're gonna get headaches because of the weird energy, and you're most likely going to have weird dreams, if not nightmares. That's very common and a really good indication to me that there's a lot more going on than just a pretty doll sitting on a shelf.
Very pretty, by the way.
It was.
So, Emma, so it didn't really end there, though. You said that you told me that there was more to this story after the fact. You found out some things about the doll. What did you find out?
We found out the doll's name is Elizabeth. That's probably why we kept saying Lizzie. When we've done further investigations, that's what it came up at. And basically, Lizzie, or Elizabeth, was simply wanting one thing: to be held, loved, respected, and the only doll in the place. She's very possessive. And so that, I think, is why she changed her tone, because I had several dolls here myself. And obviously, Ron, your mom had lots of dolls from what I saw in the pictures. And she was jealous. And so she did everything possible that she could in order to make sure that she was the only doll around. And I think she was. I don't think it was truly meant to be like a haunted doll to where she was like trying to hurt people. I don't think she was trying to do that at all. I take it as more of like a temper tantrum of a child. You know, if you don't give the child something, or you don't sit there and acknowledge the child, you hear ma, 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 and then you say, you look at them and there's something stupid, you know, it's like, what the hell was that? Well, that, I think, is the same type of thing that she was trying to do. She wanted to be the only doll, you know, be held, be taken care of, pampered, just treated like a queen. And when this lady took it, she fell in love with it, and she carries it everywhere she goes. And that doll has not given her 1 ounce of trouble, which is really kind of interesting because it's happy. And it had black eyes when it was over here. I never even knew that it had changed colors of eyes, except for one time when I took it away and I brought it to the museum. I took a picture of it, and Ron, you had said, hey, look, it's got blue eyes, because of the fact that I took time with that doll. And that was the big catalyst behind everything here. Now, I don't believe it was demonic. I don't believe it was anything major. But I think that the energy of whoever had that doll before was an only child. And I think that she was looking for the companionship, and she found it in the doll, whether she took it around with her everywhere or just put her on her mantle and made sure that, you know, that doll was special to her. I think that's what we're coming from. And so that doll craved to have that same attention again that I didn't. I couldn't give it. You couldn't give it. And this other lady could. And it's just amazing how the transformation has come about.
Let's talk about the eyes for a minute. Is there any way either one of you can think as to how that could be explained, black eyes to blue?
For me, coming from a photography type of style of it, I could say that light could be a big problem. Like if you have it inside of something that's a little bit more dark and it's not catching the light of the area very well, it is a gem, technically, or like some glass. So when you take that, the light is going to shine on it. If you have like a shadow, or it's not very well lit throughout the room, it's going to basically look like it is at dusk. When the light comes down, we start to lose the general colors of the world outside, because it's not absorbing and reflecting the light to show you the color that it actually is. We just know that it's like the tree is green, or the grass is green, and the sky is blue. And that's what we assume with. So when you're seeing that here, the same principles can be in a play. However, it was the same type of lighting in both situations. So I took it when it was kind of cloudy. I've taken pictures when it was completely dark, and I've taken pictures in full light. And I had managed to see black for the most part. And like I said, when I was more interactive with it, and it's like one-on-one, the eyes turned green in the same types of lighting. So if it was something that could be explained by light and absorption of light to show you what colors that item truly is, I truly believe that should have been in play the entire time, but it didn't.
Sylvia, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think Emma has really explained it very well, especially with the photography angle of it. That still, for me, does not explain the fact that the eyes changed color so dramatically. I really think that it was some sort of energy in the doll that when that energy is unhappy, it tends to darken the eyes. And when it is content and happy and peaceful, the eyes go to a color that perhaps the doll's eyes had in the very beginning.
Okay.
I agree with that too. And that's what I was thinking. But I was trying to give somebody out there, the ability to, if they're going to think scientifically and not paranormally, that would be an argument.
I don't know if that could be proved scientifically. I think the paranormal field is it's a field rife with irreproducible results, and it would be nice if we could have a scientific explanation for the eyes darkening. But even human beings, when we talk about humans getting angry, we talk about their gaze darkening, and you can feel that energy. And I really think that came out in a very noticeable way with the energy attached to this doll.
One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to post on the show notes, I'm going to show a picture of this doll with the dark eyes and the light eyes so that you, the listeners, can take a look at that and see what totally. I'm talking about here. It is, in some cases, at least from what I've seen, it's pretty dramatic.
It is.
So
it's cool.
One thing that I wanted to bring up was that while the doll was at the, I think it's the May Stringer house?
May Stringer, yeah.
One of the things that happened there was a video taken of the doll. And what I'd like to do is play the audio from that recording, and then maybe, Emma, you can tell us why that occurred.
I think so, yeah.
Let me play that recording. You ready?
Ready.
Yeah.
So have you been the one that's been causing Emma all her problems? The past year that she's had you? If you are causing her problems, can you please turn the flashlight on? Emma, it's hot out here. Do you know who I'm talking about? Emma and Fran? Yeah, you see the ball going. Okay. Do you miss them? If you miss them, can you turn the flashlight on? Because I think she really wants to keep you. She's just not sure about what you want. Or if you're the one causing her all of her problems. Or is it something else causing her problems and it's not you, and maybe you're looking out for her? If that's the case, can you turn the flashlight on?
Now, at this point, the flashlight came on, didn't it?
Yes.
Touch the ball. I mean, it's okay. So, are you the one causing her problems?
And that was a definite
if you
yes.
are, turn the flashlight on. You gotta be honest. Are you here to cause people problems? Is that what you want? Is to cause people pain? Is that what you want? Can you touch the ball again?
Yep.
Or turn the flashlight on?
And the flashlight came on again.
Well, we're telling the truth here. Are you here to harm people?
All right, so Emma, tell us a little bit about what happened. Why did that recording exist?
That was part of when the fellow docent at the May Stringer house got a hold of the doll and wanted to do the investigation. That was actually at her house. And so it wasn't near me at all. It wasn't near the stringer. It was in a completely random spot that she'd never been to before. I don't quite remember what was said in there, but some of the stuff that she did say, yes, she was causing the trouble for me. Yes, she did miss me. So it's like, I think that was where she was trying to convince us that she wanted to come back. And I think that's where she wanted the attention that I wasn't giving her. But I think she was willing to, stay here with us and be a part of the family as long as we gave her the utmost amount of attention.
And do you agree with me that when I broke in there and said that that was a definite yes that we heard there?
Oh, I heard yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed with that. And then it's an actual video, and I will also have a link to that video so you can see it. But the flashlight came on twice during that and went off. Came on, went off, came on, went off twice during that video. It was pretty chilling stuff, at least for me.
Yeah, that when you are working with the flashlight and you have it come on and go off in response to actual questions, that is kind of unnerving.
It is. It truly is. But it's actually exciting, too, at the same time.
Yeah.
So you said now the doll is no longer in the May Stringer house. Where exactly is it now?
Currently, the doll resides with Christopher and his girlfriend, and they are in Bradenton, Florida. They are part of Underworld Ministry. And they have a professional ghost hunting team, and they also do a podcast as well. And so they do go on there and talk about it. They have posted stuff on that website about the doll and will continue to do so to update everybody.
Well, I'll try to have that link in the show notes as well. Sylvia, you've had a lot of experience with historical items, items that definitely have seen it all. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's like? Why do things capture essences, energies? Why?
Well, it really does go back to what Emma was saying earlier about dolls in particular being very susceptible to gathering that energy. It's a plaything, yes, but it's also a child's confidant. It's a companion in the dark at night when you're trying to fall asleep. It's someone to have tea parties with. And besides all that, it's a little miniature of us. With very few exceptions, dolls are made to look like humans. And that really, I think any energy that is floating around out there that needs somewhere to coalesce and somewhere to focus on, it's really easy for that energy to focus on something human-like, like a doll. I have loads of stories about haunted dolls, and it's interesting to me to realize that just like hauntings of a house or a restaurant or a theater or whatever, these haunted dolls can be haunted in really fierce, horrible ways, or they can be haunted in gentle ways, just like anything else. The Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult is the caretaker of a doll. I believe her name is Rose, but this, or Rosie, this doll is dressed in a blue gingham robe, or dress rather, and she is not malevolent. She's not a diva like this other one we've been talking about. She's not a little princess. She was just a little girl's beloved plaything. And when that girl passed away very, very young as a child, this doll was imbued with sort of that energy. And to hold this doll will give one a feeling of melancholy. There are dolls that that it is strictly forbidden to touch, to hold at all. Like, of course, the Annabelle doll, the most famous one of them all. And there are other dolls that you really shouldn't be going around holding or treating with less than perfect respect. But with Rosie, if you cuddle her, she's not mean, she's not malevolent at all. She just exudes this sense of, like I said, melancholy. There are other dolls that have a whole lot more energy attached to them. In the Haunted Museum in Nottingham, the caretakers of that museum they've been given a whole bunch of haunted artifacts, and it's fabulous. And there are several haunted dolls in that museum, including one that they received wrapped in bubble wrap that was packed with salt. The doll was came to them packed in salt, wrapped in bubble wrap with all sorts of packing tape wrapped around it. And it is on display like that. It is in a case and it is on display, and it has a little tag next to it saying, yes, this is how we got it. This is how we're going to leave it until we can do some more research on it. There are other dolls in the Haunted Museum that have spirits of varying power attached to them. There's a doll that belonged to it didn't belong to, it houses the spirit of an 8-year-old girl who died of the plague in 1349. This is in England, so of course you're going to have people dying of the plague centuries ago that are still sort of hanging around. This doll manifests its hauntings by singing Ring Around the Rosie.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's not
and
creepy.
if you hear this doll singing, you must compliment her. I guess this one is a bit of a diva. You have to compliment her on her lovely singing voice, because if she does not get praise for her singing, she will get very angry and upset with you. The little placard in the museum did not say how that anger was displayed, but that is another child's plaything that they were very attached to. There's a haunted teddy bear in the Haunted Museum in Nottingham. It belonged to a young boy who passed away. And if you stand there and talk to the teddy bear, you might feel the young boy next to you tugging on the bottom of your shirt and saying, hello, I'd like to play some more.
No, not me.
And then I talked to the teddy bear and I talked to the little kid. I did not get any response, unfortunately. I was not allowed to record when I was in there, but I didn't hear anything, and I was not recording, so I didn't catch any EVPs. But there's an example in that museum of another doll that was not necessarily a children's plaything that had all this gentle energy imbued into it. It's rather an example of the other kind of doll, where something more evil, something more powerful, something more prickly has invaded this puppet, this doll, this representation of a human. With the others we've been talking about, it's because they were a beloved plaything of a child. With this other doll, this is kind of like the Annabelle doll. It is the conduit for something much more malevolent than the years upon years of being beloved. There's a doll at the Haunted Museum that is set up in front of a mirror. It's a very simple doll. It's got a white cloth body and it's got a porcelain head. The reason it's set up in front of a mirror is so that you can see both sides of the head of the doll. The face on the front of the doll's head is smiling. It's got this painted smile on its face. But on the other side of the doll's head, there's another face. Super creepy. And this face is frowning. And that's the face that you can see in the mirror. This particular doll contains the spirit of Friedrich Heinrich Karl Harman of Hanover, Germany. He lived from 1879 to 1925. The reason that this doll is imbued with this fellow's spirit is because this was a serial killer. He did away with at least 24 young men and boys between 1918 and 1924. When Harman was captured, this doll was found wrapped in cloth hidden beneath the floorboards in his house. Now, just like a voodoo doll, just like a puppet you hear about in the Salem witch trials, dolls can sometimes be used to store energy.
Oh, no.
And I think that's what was going on with this. I need to do a lot more research on this particular item because I want to write about this case for one of my books. But there seems to have been some sort of activity going on where this serial killer, this Friedrich Harman, was, I don't know if he was doing some sort of ritual with the doll to blend his spirit in with it. I just don't know. I need to find out more about this particular incident. But yeah, that's another way that dolls are utilized in the paranormal field, is as a conduit and as a storage place for energy, whether it's usually, if it's on purpose, it does seem to be malevolent energy, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it seems that the gentler hauntings are the ones where the doll is just much used and much beloved.
Emma, I want to take a kind of a step back and go back to what I said that originally. Do you remember way back when you went through all of the pictures of all the dolls, and you're right, there's 50, 60, I don't even know how many of these dolls. You picked out 2. Do you remember the second one?
I don't offhand. I do remember. Was it a blue dress?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
And you told me that there was nothing bad about this doll. It was well loved, you told me. But one of the things you mentioned was that that's not her original dress. How did you know that? Because my mom, when she bought that one particular doll, decided that the dress was too tattered to save and put a new dress on it. But I want to know, what was it that keyed you to know that?
I honestly just tapped into some weird energy. And that's kind of what I was feeling when I was reading it. I didn't actually obviously know that. No,
you didn't. And there's no way I didn't know it. Because when I went to my mom and asked her about it, she says, no, that's not her original dress. I put that on her.
So you didn't even know it?
No, I didn't know.
Wow.
Sometimes things like that just happen for me. I don't know. I can't explain it. Sometimes it's stronger than others. I do have a lot of these weird situations where I do hear a lot of things, and I have learned to turn it off. Sometimes I don't really want to deal with it at all. But doing something like that, I tend to be a little bit more open to it because I'm trying to really understand what's going on. And that was something that had just been told to me through the picture, like energy-wise, it was telling me what it was all about. And normally, like I said, I try to stay away from that because it's just too overwhelming for me. I guess I really need to kind of get back to that a little bit because I think it's important. It's a gift and something I should probably enhance and use a little bit more in my lifetime. But at the same time, that's the same way I was with like people. I didn't go up and shake hands with people. I didn't give people hugs because I could see things and hear things from them that I really didn't want to hear. Or I felt things that I didn't know would be tell them. And so that was something I kind of tuned out a little bit. But again, it's something that I felt from that picture that it was trying to tell me. And I think it was kind of proud of that dress. I think it made it feel better.
Can you tell me, maybe just off the top of your head, how a doll would know? How could the doll know that it had a different dress?
Well, the doll itself wouldn't know that it had a different dress. The energy inside of it would have, or that was contained, that was readable from that, I would believe. Because obviously the doll is simply just an inanimate object that really has no life to it. It's what happens with the doll. So I think that is what was telling me that it had a new dress and it was very proud of it and wanted to show it off.
Sylvia, have you ever heard anything like that before?
I have not. It's fascinating.
It blew me away when I went to my mom and asked that question. Oh, yeah, I put that on her, you know. And so I went, well, there's confirmation that these two dolls are not normal. There was one particular doll that had this cracked face, and I was convinced that this doll was haunted. And you said, no. Emma, you said, no, it's not.
Yeah. And obviously it isn't, because otherwise you'd probably be getting rid of that one too.
Well, of the bunch, it looked the most creepy.
I have a friend who has a massive doll collection, and she keeps it at the Peoria State Hospital Museum. It used to be in the Pollock Hospital, and they've put together a different doll room. It's called the doll room, and it was part of the haunt at the Pollock for obvious reasons. And in this entire room of, holy cats, I would say 80 or 90 dolls that Chris has collected over the years, there are a couple that are haunted, and she won't tell you which ones they are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're perspicacious enough to find that out for yourself, that's on you, but she will not tell you the 3 or 4 of the 80-odd dolls that are haunted.
Mm.
Honestly, that's a pretty good idea, because sometimes people hear that and they try to remove stuff from it, and that could, or remove it from the area. So it's kind of like protecting the doll, and I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Emma, have you had any stories with other dolls in your ghost hunting experience?
We have one doll at the May Stringer house, and it's probably our most haunted doll and our most famous doll. Now, this doll, it came to us a few years ago, probably about 20 years ago. And what's neat about the doll is the age, first of all. So it is from about the 1830s, making it about 180, 190 years old right about now. And what's really fascinating about this doll is it did not come haunted. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that. But it is made out of paper mache and sawdust. So to be that old and look in almost pristine shape definitely gives people the idea that something's wrong with this doll. Because generally dolls that have gone through hell and gone through that many years would not look that good. So she was very well kept and very well loved throughout her lifetime. But I think what's really amazing with it is that we have the May Stringer house has a bunch of houses that are around it, obviously, that were around the same time as Dr. Stringer when he lived there. And so a lot of people used to come over to the house because he had young kids as well. And we believe the spirit that's attached to that doll, we believe to be Elizabeth, who lived across the street. And she was friends with some of the Stringers themselves, whether or not she came over and played or she just knew somebody there. Like, I used to go over to my next door neighbor too. We called him Uncle. And that was where we would go and have fun. I think the same thing happens here because we believe that it's Elizabeth. Now, originally, we had it in a cradle at the end of the bed that was inside of the children's bedroom. And years ago, what we decided to do was this cradle was a little bit too big. So we moved the cradle out of the room and we put the 2 dolls on the bed. Now, when we did that, pandemonium broke loose. We would come in there and it looked like somebody ransacked the entire room. Things that were on the shelves were thrown off, pictures were thrown around, furniture was moved, toys were thrown all over the place. One of the dolls was thrown out into the foyer, the upstairs foyer. And some people saw like actual full-bodied apparitions. People were touched. People were pushed, scratched. They could hear people, somebody talking to them inside of their ears. And it got to the point where we're like, okay, something happened. What happened in here? And we went back to the moving the dolls out of the cradle. So once we decided to put the cradle back in and put the dolls back in, it's been pretty much simpatico all the way across the board. We do obviously have some still interactions with the dolls inside of there, with the ghosts inside of there. But when we move that doll, it still happens. Like we did a metaphysical mingle where we talk about old Victorian practices of funerals. Now Jessie May is the little baby that died in that house at the age of 3, and one of our primary ghosts. So we took that doll and the cradle and moved it downstairs into the parlor where they had funerals back then. And what was neat about it is we were trying to recreate Jessie May's funeral. And the two rooms, there's a children's room in the original house, and then there is the master bedroom, which is right next to it, butted up because there's 4 rooms, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And so when we did this, we had the communication room as a old-fashioned communication. We had tea leaves, palm reading, dowsing rods, stuff like that. But in Jessie May's room, what we did is we set up a whole bunch of modern-day technology, K2 meters, trip cords, you name it, all kinds of different things. And when that entire day, we started at 10 o'clock in the morning and we ended at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That room sounded like a symphony going off because there were so many things tripping everything. It was quite intense. When we brought the doll back up, everything stopped. It's pretty intense. I don't believe that the doll is physically haunted itself. I believe it's a girl that is protecting the doll because that's her favorite toy in the house.
That makes some sense.
It does.
Real quickly, can you give us just a real short overview of what the May Stringer house is?
Yeah, the May Stringer house started off as a farmhouse to a couple when they moved down here in the 1855. It was part of the Armed Occupational Act, which was not only for Florida, but a whole bunch of other places too, like out west. And he lived there for about 2 years, and then he died of tuberculosis. And then his mom, the mother / his wife, married Frank Saxon, who was a Civil War soldier and a hero for the area. And then they lived there. Jessie May is his daughter. They lost a little son, Franklin, at about 3 weeks old. And then his wife died giving birth to Jessie May. So it was just a lot of tragedy happened inside of this house in such a short period of time. Shortly after that, he got remarried after his entire family was gone, and Jessie May died at the age of 3. That he got remarried to a woman named Tallulah Hope. They moved out of the house. They sold it to Dr. Stringer, and he expanded it into a 14-room mansion. And that, well, it's not a mansion, it's a Victorian gingerbread house. And when he did that, he made it his doctor's office too. So he practiced medicine. He's one of the very first doctor's offices in the area. And what is so amazing with it is after they left, it turned into like different types of residence from like an apartment. They also had it as a form of private residence and rental properties throughout the time. And when that started, that happened in the 1940s to now, it started to, that's where they were starting to feel paranormal activity in it. And a lot of them didn't stay very long at all. So it became abandoned in 1974. They were going to turn the property into a medical facility. After that, it was bought out by a woman named Virginia Jackson, and she turned it into the Hernando Historical Association, where we give tours there now. And that house has been deemed the #1 most haunted house in the state of Florida. So we have been known to have over 22 ghosts there. Taps is a subsidiary of Taps. It wasn't the Ghost Hunter show from A&E a long time ago. It was their southern division. They came in and did an investigation. They found a picture of what we believe to be Frank Saxon sitting on the upstairs balcony. Also, that's been in there, Kindred Spirits came in 2020 and did an episode there. We have had people from all over the world come to investigate it because of its history. And 4 of the original family members, Jessie May, Franklin, John May, and Marina, are still buried on the property. We just don't know where.
That's not good. And you're a docent there now, is that right?
I am. I do the daytime tours. We talk about the house, the history of the house. We talk about the lifestyle of the 1850s and 1880s for the 2 styles that took place in this particular house. And then at nighttime, I'm a docent there doing the nighttime ghost tours. So we do ghost tours on Fridays, and then we do a ghost tour on Saturday. We also have private tours that people can book to come into, for those who booked up already through August of next year now. So they're very popular. And I'm also part of the board member. I'm a executive board member of the museum as well.
Wow. Sounds right up your alley, Sylvia.
It does. This is going to have to go in the next volume of Gone on Vacation when I do historic homes.
Yeah, come down and see us. I'll love to walk you through it and show you everything.
I would love that.
Sounds like I might want to research it just for my own benefit.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. But there is a lot of stuff online that people put up there that were psychic mediums. They gave the wrong information. We actually have the right information to back it up. So there is some stuff in there that is not true, It is put out there, and I try to dispel those when I talk to people during the day, because some people have come in and said stuff, and I'm like, nope, that never happened here. But for the most part, a lot of it is true. And you'll see a lot of the same information. That's mostly the true stuff that's out there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sounds great. All right. Well, I think we've covered this story pretty well. Sylvia, we'll begin with you. Do you have any closing thoughts on this one?
Oh, I think we have covered it pretty well. I hope people take away the fact that not every haunted doll is malevolent.
That's tough. That's why I brought up that other doll that my mom has, because it's anything but benevolent.
Yeah. I think people would do well to treat haunted dolls with respect, because they have such an intimidating reputation. I mean, you look talking about Florida, and that reminded me of Robert the doll. And it just pays to treat haunted dolls with respect.
Okay. Emma?
Yeah, I do believe in haunted dolls. I don't always believe that the doll comes with a spirit. It can also have something attached to it later on in life. There is one thing I can tell you that's really interesting about some dolls, and it's something you might want to look at if you go into a swap meet or flea market or antique store, is that a lot of times when kids died back in those days, if it's a very old doll, sometimes they would cut the hair of their daughter and sew it into the doll. That could potentially bring you some type of actual haunting. That could be there, and it could exist. And so that is something to look for. But for the most part, I think most of them are benevolent. I think they just want attention. They want to be queen. They want to be acknowledged. And for the most part, if you do that, I think that truly will change the whole aspect of how they are presenting to you. And I believe that you can, if you come up with a strong enough bond with it, they can protect the house as well. So I don't think that they're all mean and nasty like we want to take them out to be. I do not believe that every doll is haunted, even though sometimes they do kind of give you that aura that they might be there like that. But for the most part, I think that they just are there. They're trying to survive. They don't understand what's going on. Some of them have the spirit of the actual person that loved them. Some of them don't. But don't believe that every doll is haunted. They may creep you out, but that does not mean that they're haunted. And so I think that we should treat all dolls with the respect that they demand, even if they are haunted or not, because you never know what you're going to find.
Very true.
All right, then. Well, I want to thank both of you for doing this with me. I wanted to do this because I wanted to get some closure with this doll. And it sounds to me like this doll, who is named Elizabeth, we figured out. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. This doll, Elizabeth, just needed to find the right spot, and it sounds like she did. So I guess it's a win, right?
It is a huge win for her, for you, and everybody else.
And I'm sorry that you went through all those problems. I do feel bad about that. That wasn't my intention.
I had intended to take it with whatever it brought me. Don't feel bad. Sometimes as an investigator, this is what you got to go through.
Yeah.
And it's something I was willing to sacrifice if it ever happened to get the answers that we all needed. So I don't feel bad about it at all.
Well, I think we've covered the doll, and I want to thank you again, both of you, for being here today. Emma, Sylvia, thank you.
Certainly.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Well, that was episode number 618. And of course, I want to thank both Sylvia and Emma. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the links that we talked about and learn more about both Emma and Sylvia. Thank you for listening. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.